he's the Oscar-winning actor who's mastered the art of reinvention on and off screen. First known as one of Hollywood's favorite romantic leads, Matthew McConaughey traded rom-coms for heavy-hitting dramas like Interstellar and True Detective. But it was his portrayal of a dying AIDS patient in Dallas Buyers Club that won him the Academy Award. Since then, he's become a best-selling author with his smash hit memoir Green Lights, and even teased a run for Texas governor. Well, now, in addition to starring in The Lost Bus, a new thriller about a California wildfire, McConaughey is turning his hand to poetry. He joined me to talk about how a lifetime of faith has influenced his new book, Poems and Prayers. Matthew McConaughey, welcome back to our program.
Good to be back, Christian.
You are becoming a prolific author. Certainly Green Lights, your last one, became a bestseller. What is that kind of what led you to write a new one, this current one?
Well, I enjoyed the writing process of Green Lights so much, and I didn't have the confidence to write before then. And it was my wife who helped me write that, because when I had told her, I said, look, I have this treasure chest full of all these journals, and hey, when I die, do you mind looking at that and seeing if anything's worth sharing? And she very graciously just gave me the middle finger and said, you do it, I ain't doing it. So she kicked me out of the house, and I went off away with those journals, and for about 3 weeks alone, and found some themes and some ways that I'd been thinking the same way since I was 15 years old, at 50. And I started to write, and I started to enjoy it. And I started to enjoy the Socratic dialogue and learning who I was, and then putting it on the page in a way that translated, and having people come up and go, it did translate. I was able to see myself in your stories. I knew I wanted to continue writing, and I did.
What was it that you were thinking about since you were 15?
Oh, well, the early, 15 to 25 were the big existential young questions. Why? Who am I in this world? Why does the world work this way? Why do I exist? What's the meaning of life? Is there a God? Does it matter what we do now to what happens to us tomorrow? How do I deal with forgiveness? How do I deal with guilt? How do I deal with grace? Where do I say the buck stops here? Who am I going to be? Who can I be? How much are my hands on the wheel? How much is it fate? All those wonderful questions. Who am I? I've always been interested in trying to get to know myself as well as possible, and get to know my own monologue, which I think is necessary for any of us if we want to go have a dialogue with others and the rest of the world. The Poems and Prayers came along because I found myself a couple of years ago, Christian, getting a little bit cynical, too cynical for my taste. And I'm looking around at the evidence, I'm looking at the facts of the world, and I'm turning on the news, and I'm going, man, I'm not seeing people and things happening to believe in. Yeah. And so I started to objectify, started to get people and things and not give people the benefit of the doubt. And I started to do that with myself as well. So I got kind of first scared and then angry with myself. And I said, all right, if we're not seeing evidence in the world and finding belief in that, let's go to dreams and ideals and the pursuits of divinity and try to make dreams a reality. Let's go to poems and prayers and believe in that, and not forget or forgive or say, no, those aren't attainable, and let's try and bring those down and make those a reality in my own life. And there's so many people I've talked to that they're looking for the same thing. They're looking around the world and going, I'm not seeing a reason to believe around me. And I think, obviously, if doubt wins, we all lose.
So just to be clear, you are a person of faith, you're a believer,
yes.
And spirituality.
Well, I would say religious. I'd go one step further. I believe in God now, and I'm working on this, and I want to strengthen my relationship in that faith. But this book and what I'm writing about is not exclusive to only people that believe in God or not. I believe anyone out there who believes in their better self or their transcendent self, or believes in their kids, or believes in the future, or believes in their past. Any philosophy that as long as it's not tyrannical and harming a bunch of people, oh, please believe in that more. Double down on that, triple down on that, please. And I think if enough of us do that, that's a real way to make a step forward as collectively, as humanity.
So I want to ask you, because we've got a couple of poems. I mean, obviously the book is full of poems and prayers, but there are a couple that we'd like you to read from. The first one would be Doubt Faith. If you wouldn't mind reading that one.
Sure. Doubt Faith. I think that's on 144. Doubt faith. Yeah. In this life, in our mind, through our eyes, and on each day. Doubt is logical and reasonable. Faith is not. Faith does not rid doubt. Rather, it carries us through it. May our faith outshine our doubt.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a manifesto, right? Would you say that pretty much sums up what you're thinking throughout this whole book?
I believe that belief is in short supply right now, and we need it. It's necessary for our own survival. And if we let the doubt win, we all lose, as far as I can tell. That math adds up. So let's find those things that we value in our life, the things we care about, the people we care about. And you know what? People that say, I don't know what to believe in, a great place to start is go, well, who would you die for? What would you die for? Start there. And most everyone has something there. Start there. Double down on that. Believe in that more. Make that part of what you're living for, and we can get out of whatever rut we're in.
Okay, so let me ask you, because clearly we're speaking at a time when a lot of people all over the world, from your country to mine to further east and west, feel like they're in ruts, feel a lot of doubt, feel a lot of being disconnected, this frankly existential issues. And, you know, religion also is a place where people can find purpose, find community, get out of their heads, if you like, of what's coming at them down the road. Do you feel that that's, I mean, do you see that, and do you feel that that's...
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And again, even if you don't believe in God, there are plenty of wonderful ethics that come from religious text that any agnostic would go, I want to follow that. I do believe it is a North Star where we can lean more into and dissect. What we have to, watch out for is we like to slam the author, meaning, whether the Ten Commandments should be in schools or not, I'm not going to say. But does anyone disagree with any of them? Now, they're saying no because the author. There's plenty of things in the Quran that we could all look at and go, yes, I subscribe. And I may be a Christian or I may be a non-believer. There are plenty of things in many religious texts that I think we should put up. But religion, mankind has bastardized religion along the way. I always like to bring this up. Do you know the Latin root of religion is ligare, which means to bind together, and which means again. Now, a lot of people that I talk to that say, no, I'm merely spiritual, I'm not religious. That's exactly what they're for. So mankind, civilization, we bastardized religion. What we've done to it is not what I believe God was saying, that's what I want you to do with it. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater on this. There's a bunch of wonderful things that we can get from religion. And I personally think life is religious. Now, that's me. If you want to call yourself spiritual or agnostic, fine. But you do have something you believe in. I bet you do have something you die for. You do have something that you pursue that's of value to you. And if you can double down on that, amen.
So, there are obviously a lot of religious people in the world. Some of them are hucksters, as we know. Some of them prey on vulnerable people. Yeah. Others are wearing their religion on their hearts and, using religion to justify their politics. But you are religious, as you've told me, and you are best known for being an actor. I just wondered what it's like on set. Do you communicate your religious beliefs, feelings, or this kind of really interesting conversation to fellow actors, or do you separate the two?
No, I talk openly. I'm also not out. I'm not out pursuing conversion. I have these conversations and have many conversations with many friends of mine who would call themselves agnostic. We do not disagree on certain principles and the ways and rules of engagement in life with ourselves and others. I may get to the end and go, and therefore God exists, but like when I heard Carl Sagan break down the universe for 3 hours, he did it, it opened my mind up, I listened, and at the very end, my line was I was going to go, and therefore God exists. But what he said was, and therefore God doesn't exist. We didn't disagree on anything in the first 3 hours. And what he did was built my faith up, but his point was, and therefore God doesn't exist. We had a wonderful laugh at that. because it was beautiful how we got there. So I have conversations on set with friends all the time. I say grace with many of my agnostic, even atheist friends at the table who can find something to be thankful for in their life. I may start it off with thank you, God. They may just say thank you. Fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I get it. Now, you have a new film out, of course. It's called The Lost Bus. Your real-life mother is in it with you. What was it like? And also your son. I mean, 3 generations of McConaugheys. What was that like?
Well, it was wonderful. I never thought of that, never dreamed of it, never hoped it would happen, never tried to really make it happen. It was our director, Paul Greengrass, who cast my son, even though when I pulled his last name off the read that he had on camera, he got it on his own without his last name. And then my mother, who Paul needed to cast someone for my mother. And he goes, what about your mom? And I said, well, she's 93. She actually just fell, busted her tailbone. She's in a wheelchair. He said, that'd be perfect for the part. I said, well, let me get her in front of you first. And he goes, yeah, give me something on camera. I said, Mom, give me a minute on why you love being a mother. She sends an 8-minute video. He looks at it and goes, great, she's it. That's who I want. So all of a sudden, I'm on set with my mom and my son. And the other night, I must say, when we premiered at the Toronto Film Festival, to be between those two, as a father to my son on the right and a son to my mother on the left, who's 93, and to see them beaming, one just getting started, one feeling great relevance in doing this in her life, was a wonderful bridge and place to be for myself.
And do both those generations sandwiching you, are both of them religious, your mother, and does your son have the same feelings as you?
Well, my son is the most considerate young man I've ever met. Where does that consideration come from? Partially who he is and who he was when he was born, but also I'd like to say that Camilla and I can take some credit for what we learned in our household of how to be individuals and understand who you are, and also stand up for things, but have compassion for yourself, and how you treat yourself is how you should treat others, and vice versa. I think they're conscientious young children. I'm not going to go so far to say for my son, oh, he's religious. I'm letting him navigate the definition of that for himself. It feels nice as a parent when your kids go out of the house and come back into the world, and people that they engaged with when you weren't there come back and tell you great things about how they were, how they behaved, how they were kind, how they were considerate, how they were a leader, And you go, oh, okay, it seems to be working. Now, my mom, we grew up on, no one forgives themselves quicker than her. She says every night, I said, Mom, what's the secret to being 93 and so happy? She goes, I go to bed with a list of 25 things that I regret every night. The best thing is I wake up in the morning and I forgot them all.
That is good. That is the advantage of age. I like that. You also have some other, issues in your book. You talk about disinformation, and here's one idea that stood out. In our age of politics, you write, AI, plastic surgery, and high-frequency fix-it in post-deepfake deceptions, I often find myself walking away from all the knowledge and reality more confused, more frustrated, and less well-advised than I was before I consumed it. It is actually hard these days to find your true north, your sort of guiding star.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he says he believes we're in the age of disorientation. And to orient ourselves in this changing world, and to open up the news and see what AI is doing, and the human jobs that it's taking, and the human jobs that it's promised to create, but we're still saying, okay, which ones are those going to be? It seems to be we're definitely in a time in history, even maybe more so than the internet, and the Industrial Revolution, that we are about to redefine how we engage in life. And so how do we orient ourselves in that? And how where you don't know if something's real or not, if the questions of what's truth or what's a fact are more up in the air now than ever. So that can be painful, it can be confusing, and we have to wonder, where's my place in it? And what do I rely on? What is real? If you give a damn about reality, that's another question. Is something that's virtual just as real? Those are more questions that we got to answer. So, what can we trust in? And again, I'll go back to that thing. If it's hard, and it is hard, ask yourself who or what you die for. Look at that, double down on that, nourish that, tend that garden a little bit more. And that can help us at least keep a compass that's a good North Star, no matter where the world goes and where we find orientation in it.
You know, some people would say, you know, they would, I mean, maybe not die for, but somehow do everything for the American dream. And you talk about that too in the book. And you cover, you know, that with a lot of big issues. You talk about patriotism and about the American dream. You say, so whether you think it's a dream or an illusion, if nothing else, it's the best nightmare available. What do you mean by best nightmare?
I heard that term, I believe, from a friend of mine in Europe about 15 years ago. Wow, at least it's the best nightmare going. And I was like, what an interesting way to think about it. And it's an indirect sort of baseline compliment. But for those of us, and myself included, when we start going, oh, it's all BS. There's no system. The capitalism doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. It's all politics. It's all bull. You know, every country does. That slippery slope that can start to take away all belief. I go, well, you know what? And I talk about this in the poem America Yet, about America as an idea. It's a constant pursuit that will never be achieved. We just have to stay in the race and stay in the chase to progress in the right way. Best nightmare going, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek going, well, if you look around, I'm going to say, they're all nightmares. Pick the best nightmare. It's kind of like saying, well, if you don't believe in heaven, at least make a move to get further from hell.
Unfortunately, we are living in a bit of a nightmare scenario, you know, right now all over the world. I want you to read for me, if you wouldn't mind, from Regulations, the other poem we've chosen.
Sure. Regulations. Listen to yourself. Hear yourself. Learn yourself and mind. Measure yourself. Train yourself. Referee yourself in kind. Negotiate yourself. Invest yourself. Multiply yourself in scale. Administer yourself. Accomplish yourself. Dare yourself from hell. Own yourself. Exchange yourself. Pay yourself back. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because we started by you at 15 asking all those existential questions, including who am I? Do you know who you are now?
Oh. That's a really fun question. Do I know who I am now? I'm doing the best to wake up and every day and feed the things that do seem to satisfy me for longer periods of time. I have found and built a life where I have investments that are non-negotiable, starting with family. And, you know, I still have to watch over leveraging myself and get too many campfires. I think we all do. You get too many campfires. No, there's some of those. Get rid of some campfires and put more wood on some of the original fires that really mean a lot to us. I know what things mean to me in life. I have a lot of meaning in my life. I have a pretty good threshold when I feel like I'm getting away with it and I'm skirting on the edges. I need to pull myself back. But I still want to take risks. And I look forward to getting up each day, even if I've got a host of problems I've got to solve in front of it. And it's easier to know who you're not than who you are, but I have a pretty good sense when I look around me of reflections that tell me who I am.
Well, that's a wonderful place to be. Matthew McConaughey, thank you very much indeed.
I enjoyed that and look forward to the next time, Christiane.
Me too. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing Los Pas.
Thank you.